On a panel on the UN International Day of Peace, Steve Kilelly from the Institute for Economics and Peace said that personal peace is a prerequisite to addressing the problems of our day, that the only way to procure peace is to work on ourselves. And I'm pleased to say that the Creators of Peace movement is addressing both these themes. So I will say hello, introduce myself. My name is Tanya, and I'm the New South Wales Admin Coordinator for Creators of Peace. I've been with COP now for 12 years. And I'd like to welcome you all to our presentation on the power of Creators of Peace, circles. Today's session is being recorded, so if you do not wish to be recorded, please, you may turn off your camera. Joyce is a Creators of Peace facilitator and has been for 15 years. And she is a member of the WRN, the Women's Reconciliation Network, supporting the Uluru Statement of the Heart. Pass you over to Joyce.
Welcome. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a great privilege to have so many people gathering today. My friend Nicole Lepepe wanted to be here to give an acknowledgement of country. She's a Gonaroy woman and is working in the regional areas of Australia. The needs are very great up there at the moment, so she's unable to be with us. But we do think of all the Indigenous people who are facing COVID and the problems that they are facing. My name is Joyce, and I live on the Gadigal land of the Eora Nation. I acknowledge and honour the traditional custodians of this continent. In First Nations, we recognise the longest living cultures on earth and the people's continuing deep connection to these lands, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and we stand with the First Nations sisters and brothers committed to working for equality and justice for all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples for the Uluru Statement of the Heart. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joyce. Now, as I said, we have 14 passionate Creators of Peace facilitators with us today to present to you. And we've come together to present a little background on Creators of Peace and to give you a taste of what happens in the Peace Circle and its powerful positive effect that it has on our participants. You may have heard of the concept of the Peace Circle. Well, our approach is person-centred, starting with the individual, a personal peace. We work on ourselves first as a prerequisite for peace. And to begin, a rough background on the origins of Creators of Peace. It was back in 1991 that the seeds of peace were planted at a conference of world leaders at the Initiatives of Change Conference Centre in Co in Switzerland. In the opening speech made by a respected politician, the Honourable Anna Abdullah Masekwa, who was a leader of women's organisations in Tanzania at the time when war was rife, she had observed the huge burdens of war on women, having to keep a home and care for their family during times of war, and their powerlessness in having no say in the decision to go to war. So she floated a vision of women's initiative, of a women's initiative to create peace, saying we must address the positive element of peace, beginning with ourselves, that women are the missing link and they need to explore the nature of peace and their role in creating it. She urged women everywhere to create peace wherever we are, in our hearts, in our homes, our workplace, our communities. She said, we all pretend that someone else is the stumbling block, but we must examine if that someone could be myself. For years after Jean Brown from Adelaide in South Australia worked on designing a program for women to explore the nature of peace and their role in creating it. And in 2003, Jean trialled a methodology to bring together local women around kitchen tables to trial it. It was enthusiastically trialled, and it was found that the experience of this opportunity for free conversations, the honest sharing, the time for reflection and deep listening was transformative, was transforming and empowering, allowing the women to find their voice and want to contribute to peace building in their own lives and in the world around them. So the interest grew, and the Peace Circle was picked up by women in all parts of Australia. And from there, it has spread far and wide, and largely successful because the participants go on to want to train, to facilitate the peace circles to other women. And so it grows exponentially, and it has become a flagship program of Creators of Peace. We are now a thriving global network of some 8,000 women active in over 50 countries, where we're stitched together by a common purpose: to be role models of peace, putting peace into practice, and creating cultures of peace in our communities. And this year, we've celebrated our 30th anniversary. And we received a message from the Honourable Anna Abdallah Masekwa. And the message read, I would like to thank all those women and men who have driven safely for the past 30 years the idea of creating peace through the Creators of Peace circles until it has reached the point of no return. The strength that the women have been endowed with to build peace must be carried high on shoulders of women. I urge all women worldwide to plant seeds of peace in everyone's heart until those seeds bear fruit. And, well, there's a bit of an insight into our beginnings. And we hope that we can open your hearts and minds to the power of the Creators of Peace Circle. I now have pleasure in passing over to Alice, one of our Creators of Peace Circle facilitators, to light a candle. This is something that we do at the beginning of Creators of Peace gatherings to acknowledge our intention of coming together in the interest of peace. Over to you, Alice.
Thank you, Tanya. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this event. As Tanya mentioned, during the Peace Circle program, we try to look for ways to make the space look and feel comfortable. And while lighting a candle is not a ritual of the Peace Circle per se, it is one of the things we have done in the past to enhance the atmosphere in the space. And we made sure that everyone was comfortable with that. In different countries and contexts, things are being done differently. And today, in this context, we would like to light a candle because the flame has a significant meaning in context of peace. Some of you may have learned about the World Peace Flame that has been mentioned during yesterday's festival event, connecting communities in times of conflict. So in this tradition, I would like to light a candle now and read a poem by Becca Lee. This is now the living flame of peace, our candle. Candle lighting, a poem by Becca Lee. Around the world, candles provide light in the darkness and symbolize good intentions. If you seek peace, be still. If you seek wisdom, be silent. If you seek love, be yourself.
Thank you.
So I will put it next to me. So the flame of peace will be burning here next to me. Yeah, the poem is by Becca Lee. Yes. And now I would like to invite you all to participate in an activity that we may call a peace popcorn. And I would like you to think about the following. What does peace mean to you? So what is the first thing that comes into your mind when you think of the word peace? Think about it, and please put 1 or 2 words into the chat box. And we may then see how the peace popcorn unfolds. I can see beautiful comments coming in. Love, joy, dove, unity, long life, openness and nonviolence, freedom from fear, calmness, harmony, calm ocean, beautiful as well, walking near trees, connecting, care for others and love, fun, creative addressing of conflict, tranquility, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much. Feel free to look into the chat box to get a sense of each other's associations. And thank you everyone for participating. I would like to now pass on to Prashanti, who will talk about the initiatives of change. Over to you, Prashanti.
Thank you. Thank you, Alice. Yes, it's really lovely to see all of you here today. Welcome on behalf of Creators of Peace and Initiatives of Change. And I've been with Creators of Peace in Sydney for more than 15 years. I just would like to give you a little bit of background to the program. This is a program of the umbrella organization called Initiatives of Change. So I just want to give you a little bit of information of Initiative of Change before we explore Creators of Peace and Peace Circle. Now, Initiatives of Change is a program made up of people from diverse cultures and backgrounds who are committed to transformation of society through changes in human motives and behavior, starting with our own. We try and achieve this through focusing on trust building, ethical leadership, and sustainable living. Initiatives of Change as a movement started over almost 100 years ago and is currently active in many countries. Our main work involves building trust across the world's divides and takes place within communities where there is a need. Initiatives of Change has 2 main conference centers, one in Panchagan in India and the other in Co, Switzerland. There are many local centers. We also have one in Australia, in Melbourne. Initiatives of Change, all of us at this Initiatives of Change are committed to creating peace and social cohesion through trust and reconciliation. Creators of Peace is one of many programs of Initiative of Change. As Tanya shared before, this program was launched in 1991 and calls upon all of us really to build peace, mostly women. But I think the program is also catered to everyone in the world. Since then, Creators of Peace has been very active, mainly as a women's initiative to empower women to create peace at every level of society, starting with ourselves. The main tool of Creators of Peace is the Peace Circle. In this circle, women come together in a series of gatherings led by 2 trained facilitators who invite participants to explore several themes around the concept of peace and skills to create peace. We organized our first Peace Circle in Sydney in 2004. And since then, we have had many circles, not only in Sydney, but all over Australia. As again, Tanya mentioned, we are a global network of people working on different continents through Creators of Peace circles, workshops, personal encounters, community building activities, and international conferences. Since 1991, Creators of Peace has held 10 international conferences, including one in Sydney in 2009. And many women from here in Australia participated in a conference in Co in 2016 called Living Peace Conference to celebrate 25th anniversary of Creators of Peace. Now this year in 2021, as we celebrate 30 years of Creators of Peace, we all would like to invite you to explore the power of peace circles through our session today. For me personally, Creators of Peace has become a way of life, which helps me to stay grounded and be at peace even through challenging situations. I have forged great friendships that I will cherish forever. Thank you. And I now pass on to 2 of my friends, Zora and Shoshana, who are here today with us, who are facilitators of our Creators of Peace Circle, to explain the essence of Creators of Peace Circle to you. Thank you.
So thank you. I'll be the first. I'm going to introduce myself and then Zora will do the same. And we'll talk about, then between us, we're going to share with you a bit about the essence of the Peace Circle. Let me just start by saying, for me, I've been involved in the peace building field for a very long time, probably since just after International Year of Peace, which was in 1986, through my connection at the time with the start of the Conflict Resolution Network. And then about 11 years ago, I came across the Creators of Peace and Initiatives of Change, and there was a lot that ticked a lot of boxes for me, and that's why I'm still here. So I just like to mention that, what it's been for me personally that keeps me involved here, and it's very much what Prajanti just said. It's very part of an everyday life experience. I was just referring to the speaker who launched her book the other morning. Her name was Severine Otasser, and she talked about the peace building being about everyday peace actions, about grassroots and very local, and very much about empowering people locally. And this is what I've found very much about Creators of Peace. It's exactly what we do. We are a community. We are empowering and supporting each other. And we keep each other honest in our community. I keep reminding each other why we're here in a very everyday sense. I'm going to pass over to Zora. She'll introduce herself, and then I'll tell you what we can do when I come back. Hi, Zora.
Thanks, Shoshana. Thank you, Shoshana. So I remember meeting Shoshana at a Creators of Peace planning meeting about 12 years ago, and we've been good friends since then. I had just joined Creators of Peace. I'd just completed my first Peace Circle at the time. And how it happened for me was that a friend of mine with whom I worked in interfaith work had been involved with Creators of Peace for many years. Around that time, my family was building a mosque in Annan Grove. If you Google Annan Grove and 2004, you will, and mosque, you will find out that we had a lot of opposition from the local community to the building of the mosque. And my friend Jane Mills decided that if we had a peace circle and brought women of diverse backgrounds together from the Hills area, we could foster some understanding of the other at the time. So that's how I got involved with Creators of Peace. And for me, it was a learning experience. A lot of the things that we discussed in that peace circle were things that I probably had heard about in the past, but once I sat it and did it as part of a peace circle, it was quite revelation. And I didn't have light bulb moments. Many women do, but for me, the peace process is a bit of a work in progress. I often move one step forward and 2 steps back. And as I often call my Creators of Peace friends, my tribe, they're the women who keep me, keep reminding me of why I'm here and why I'm still part of Creators of Peace. We're a group of friends who look after each other and look out for each other. And we keep reminding ourselves of what this journey is about. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to add something here about our friendship, Zora and I, because it's very typical of what we're on about. So Zora, for instance, how it works is often Zora invites us, Creators of Peace, to her iftar celebrations, and I invite Zora to my community, my faith community, where she gives talks. And Zora and I have run a peace circle together some years ago. We brought a mixture of Jewish and Muslim women together as we facilitated together. And as we've said, over and above everything else, we have a delightful friendship, which I think brings us both joy. And, we do what women do. We chat together sometimes. That's what it's about. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give you a little bit more sense of what the DNA or the essence of the peace circle is. And then Zora's going to talk a bit about what happens in a peace circle and how peace circles come together. And then I'm going to come back and talk a bit more about what happens after the peace circle, what comes out of it and what happens afterwards. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about them, about the essence. It's worth mentioning this point that there's something very sacred and magical about a circle in itself. There's a sense of wholeness and oneness and unity. There's no sides. We're in this together. It's a sacred space. What we do in the peace circle is not a training and it's not a course. It's a journey. So what we're doing is inviting women into a space to come on a journey with us based around some gathering points and story sharing. The journey is very much a self-discovery journey. So again, it's a self-discovery around what is it that peace is for me? What does peace mean to me, and how do I create peace in my life? So again, we're not prescriptive. We're not here to say this is how you do peace. We're here to create a space and some tools and some conversations, and it's like one long conversation in many ways that leads people to get clearer about what it means to them. So what does it mean to build peace in your life? Well, it can mean a number of things. It can mean, and we leave the space for people to explore all of these. What does it mean to you as an individual to have more peace in your own life? Where are you not at peace? And what does it mean to expand on that and to be a person who's coming from some understanding and an ongoing journey of developing peace within? We also look at what is peace in our relationships, in the people we relate to, how it is in our families, how it is with the people around us. Where else could we be bringing a sense of peace in our relationships? And where else can we be relating to people that we don't know, who are different? How do we reach across? This is the peace begins with me, and how do we build trust across divides? How do we actually reach out to people who are different so we can be together with people who are different rather than stay in our silos as we tend to want to do? And last, we also look at what does it mean to be a peace creator in the sense of what are you not at peace about in what goes on in the world? Now, there's probably a lot of answers to that question, but the question becomes in the peace circle to explore a little bit about what is it that feels right for you at this point to take action. Where do you feel comfortable about taking action? Again, action can look like many different things for different people, but it's very much everyday action. We work with other organisations and get involved in various different actions around the place. Individuals do as they choose. There are some kind of what I call a DNA in the Peace Circle, some underlying things that are very important. Diversity is incredibly important. So we do everything to encourage that the women in our circles, we have a diverse range of people. It could be diversity of background, it could be age, it can be culture, it can be faith. But what we want is to be able to sit there with those differences and with a sense of acceptance of all views are welcome. And how can we be and understand and learn with each other? You know, this peace circle and acceptance is very important. We're looking at inner peace and we're looking at outer peace. For me, the peace circle is such an incredibly important peace building tool, you know, in this coming together and empowering women. We do that also through story sharing, which Zora will talk about. But if you were at the Connecting Communities session the other day, my good friend Abe Kadan gave a beautiful talk about how in the African communities, being together and sharing stories is what was able to help them build bridges across their own different diversity, and just to be hearing each other. So in a sense, it's a long conversation, it's a safe space, it's a place we meet other people, it's a place for healing, it's a place for growth and self-discovery. I just want to add one more point and pass it over. Why the big question we often get asked is, why is it just women? And I just want to say that what we are trying to do is providing a space to empower women as peacemakers. And when women are peacemakers, they are bringing about peace for everybody, husbands, sons, and all the community around them. We're not empowering, it's not a women's movement, it's a place to empower women. There are places and there are occasionally situations where we also invite men to join our peace circles. That can happen and does happen occasionally. And there are many places around the world, because we are a global movement, where providing safe spaces for women only is a very important part of the growth and healing and development of those women. So that's why it's very much about women, and women have a great deal to contribute to peace building currently. So Zora, I'm passing back to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Shoshana. So Shoshana's given you a bit of an essence of what a peace circle is about, and I'd like to tell you the practicalities of what we actually do and how it's run. So generally, 2 Creators of Peace facilitators come together and gather a group of women, say anywhere between 8 to 12 women of diverse backgrounds. And one of them one of the women often offers their home for us to meet in regularly. We've often met at other places. I've run a peace circle with Joyce, whom you saw earlier, at my children's school. The school was very happy to give some of the mothers and myself a room where we could meet weekly and have a peace circle. We've had run peace circles in community centres. We've had a peace circle at the Buddhist Centre in Homebush. So there are different locations. Often a home works very well. And there are different formats for the way we run peace circles as well. So we could run a peace circle, we could meet once a week for a period of 8 weeks, a couple of hours each time. And that's one format. Another format is running the peace circle over a weekend. So we could start on a Friday evening and then meet again on the Saturday for the day, sharing a lunch, and the same on a Sunday. Or, you know, one day for a couple of consecutive weekends, that sort of thing. Depends on the needs of the group that are meeting together. What do we do during a peace circle? In a peace circle, what we do is work through a series of what we call gathering points. Now, these gathering points are different aspects of peace and the peacemaking process. To begin with, we discuss things like, what is peace? Earlier, we did the peace popcorns. So when we gather together in a peace circle, we first ask the participants what peace means to them. Then we look at things like, who are peacemakers? We examine the qualities these peacemakers have, and we ask ourselves whether only certain people can be peacemakers, or is that possible for everyone? Can anyone be a peacemaker? What sort of qualities do you need, and what qualities do you have inherent in yourself? What qualities do you need to build up to become a peacemaker. Then we move on to the toolkit part of the Peace Circle, what I call the toolbox. We look at things like listening and inner listening. We listen to so many things throughout our day, but are we just hearing them or are we really listening to them? Do we listen with intent? Do we listen with purpose, without judgment? Or are we listening only so that we can respond? These are some of the things we discuss when we talk about listening. We also learn about inner listening and how to set aside some quiet time in our day to really listen to ourselves, our minds, our bodies. What are they saying to us? This, I must say, was something that was very new to me because at the time I had 4 young children, very busy life. We had just begun running a mosque and I had to really work hard to set aside time to do inner listening. And when I said that peace for me is a work in progress, I'm still learning to do that. It is something that I often feel, do I really need to do that? But I've seen the benefits of the times I do set aside quiet time for myself to listen to my thoughts and try to work out what's going on in my head. And that helps me with what's going on in my life. We look at how to achieve inner peace because, as we've said earlier, peace begins with me. How do I get to a place where I can be at peace with myself and what is going on in my life? And then we move on to the action part of the Peace Circle. So we begin to address circles of concern that the participants have, and each participant brings their own areas of concern to the Peace Circle. We look at what sort of things concern women in today's world. And we look at things like forgiveness. I have an inner critic sitting on my shoulder. I've always been very harsh on myself. And I really had to work hard to forgive myself, stop being a perfectionist, and just allow myself to be and to forgive other people was then the next step for me in that journey. So we look at these issues in the circle. Shoshana mentioned story sharing, and that's a very that's one of the favorite gathering points that women often recall when they're asked what their favorite part of the Peace Circle was. We try and make, as facilitators, we try and make a space as safe as possible for women to share their stories, a place for them to be heard. Many of us haven't visited our lives as recounted by ourselves. I had never done that before. I had never spoken to a group of women whom I didn't know very well about the things that I had been through and the things that I had accomplished in my life. So over the years, over different circles, I've told my story, I've shared my story, and every time I share my story, I see myself in a different light, and I see the things that I have that make me who I am, the turning points in my life through new eyes. And many women say that the story sharing is what stands out for them in a circle. So I think I've given you a bit of in a nutshell, what a Peace Circle, what happens, what takes place in a Peace Circle. Over to you, Shoshana.
Thank you. So how we get people together varies in different ways. I just want to mention one particular model of how we've been working, and I've been working for some years in partnership with the Centre for Peace and Conflict Studies, or the department now, and providing this peace building tool to students of Peace and Conflict Studies. And I really want to acknowledge Wendy Lambourne, who's in charge there and who has supported this process, as she sees that this is an incredibly good balance for the students to have a personal experience in a person-to-person peace building tool. So over the years we've run 12 peace circles there, and also included men in that circle because it felt appropriate. And some of these students are from around the world and have gone on to use this tool in various ways. Was there anything else I want to say? I want to talk about some of the things that have come out of the peace circles. there are probably other questions about how we work or how peace circles happen. Please put them in the chat box and we'll get back to you about those later. One good example that I could talk about is Rosemary Kariuki, who's the speaker that's coming on this program this evening. Rosemary was very inspired at a number of levels from her experience of doing a peace circle many years ago, one of which is she's taken a lot of action out there in the world about bringing her neighbours together and cultural exchange programs and getting very active. Another thing that she often talks about, I've heard her talk publicly about this, is how the listening changed her whole relationship with her children. They stopped and they had different conversation, and she says she's always eternally grateful for that one. And another ways in which this one's evolved is that the Creators of Peace team here in Sydney have been supporting Rosemary's work by helping her with putting together a very large cultural exchange event earlier this year. So there's a number of different ways that happens. And of course, we have a number of things that we locally do. We get together in a community of practice. We keep ourselves honest, as I said before, and we keep our tribe happening. It's really important to keep revisiting for ourselves what we're doing. I just want to talk also about the fact that we are also global. And for me, one of the wonderful things that's changed my life is not only the people that my tribe, as Zora likes to call it in Sydney, it's also my tribe around the world. And we are a global network in many countries, and we do meet regularly on particularly the facilitators on global Zooms, and we have an active WhatsApp which has 120 women, so we know what we're doing, and we hear from each other, and we're really connected with what's going on all around the world and the different projects, and we're there for each other when there's particular, we have Afghan women that we've been supporting through our WhatsApp, and there are all sorts of things that we support that happen. I want to mention a few things that have happened. I'm going to go back to something that happened a few years ago in Kenya through the peace circles, where, just to give you a sense of the sorts of things that can come out of women being together in peace circles. So in Kenya, in one of the areas where there have been tribes that were warring for many years over land in particular, the women took the peace circle to two or three different tribes in a particular area where this was going on. And after quite a number of women had done the peace circle, they brought the women themselves from one of the more aggressive tribes decided to apologise to the women from the other tribes. And these women came together. And through that process, you can see it on a video somewhere, how they met together and listened to each other and spoke about forgiveness and talked about how to influence their men differently. And, many more peace circles. I mean, it's a very powerful way to bring about change through the women initially. And then they continued to run many other peace circles and get the gatherings with men and get community discussions about what they could do to bring more peaceful relations in their work. There are many other countries where things like that happen. In Nepal, they take the peace circles out to very remote districts. They work with young people to empower them to take action or to look after themselves in their own lives. In Burundi, they work much more deeply with trauma work and helping people set up projects. Look, it goes all over the world. And in the UK this week, just last week, one of our online programs, which was run from there, it was a new thing. Particularly, it's called a young youth gen, so they were all very young teenagers and early 20s for the first time from all different countries, and they got up and they took it on themselves that they wanted to create a podcast of what peace meant to them, and they turned it into a song, and they launched that podcast yesterday or the day before an international Day of Peace. We'll put a link to it in the box if you want to watch it. It's rather wonderful to me to see these young people connecting around the world with people from such different countries, just to get a sense of how they're connected around wanting to bring peace into their lives and take responsibility for that. Locally, we also, as I said, we have groups. We continue to meet in a community of practice. I just also want to mention that we have other events, other programs and events. One of the things that we have is a program called Advocates for a New Story. It's really a place to visit the narratives that we carry and reassess them. We do that a bit in the story sharing in the circle, but this is also looking at the kind of societal narratives that we've been carrying with us for quite a long time. Something weird is happening on my screen, sorry. I'm not sure what just happened there, but I've lost myself.
It says that Jane Chater has started screen sharing.
I will need...
you need to stop the screen sharing, Jane. Hello, Jane. Are you able to?
Okay,
yeah, we're back.
Thank you. Thank you. So I just wanted to mention the advocates and how we're looking at starting to really examine the narratives that we've been brought up with, both personally and in society, starting to think and act on what are the narratives we think would be more important for the societies that we want to build and have around us. We have a program that's about how to have conversations in situations where you're confronted with the challenges of people with different views. How can we come together and hear and present our different views and be good with that? So how to handle challenging conversations. Initiatives of Change has a number of new programs coming on board, particularly in the Indigenous space, which is about trust building and truth telling. So I'm just saying all that right now so you have a sense there's a number of other things that we keep ourselves alive and ongoing. Now, we will put in the chat box the links to our websites. We will put in there. So there's an international website will give you a good sense of what we do, Creators of Peace. There's a local Australian website. They're both Initiatives of Change websites with Creators of Peace pages in there. You can download information or sign up for programs if you want. We will put up a link to the YouTube of a lovely video that was made just a couple of months back to celebrate our 30th anniversary. It gives you a good sense of Creators of Peace around the world and what the podcast that the young ones did only last week. And we will also put up now and again later the email address for Tanya and what's going on locally. I will mention right now that we will have a Peace Circle coming up at the end of October. So if you're interested in that, please put that in the chat box. So that's a lot of information. There's probably a lot more. Please feel free to ask or contact us. So what I'm going to invite you to do right now is something that we love to do and very often do, one of our practices in Creators of Peace, which is just to sit in silence for a moment. So what I'm inviting you to do right now is take a few deep breaths and just sit in silence. It's a moment to kind of just take on board. We've given you a lot of information. See what's landed for you. There's so much to talk about, and there's so much to just sit silently with as well. We often do this in our programs, is just to take the space to be present to ourselves, to tune into our own guidance and where we're at and what's landing for us. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. So what's going to happen next is we're going to invite you to an experience of a Peace Circle. It's a kind of taster. Obviously, we won't get the whole of what we do in our long program. However, we're going to do a 25-minute exercise process right now. So you might have noticed on the screen there are lots of women with a COP at the beginning of their name. They're our wonderful, excited facilitators that are here today to support your experience. So you're going to be invited into a breakout room, and in the breakout room there'll be time to get to know each other and visit one of our particular gathering points. So it's not deep, it's just a discussion. You're invited to come. We really encourage you to come. If you want to participate, please do. If you prefer to just listen, you're welcome to do that as well. So taking a few more deep breaths. And when we come back, what we'll be doing is something very, very significant. So please be around for the next thing, which is we'll be hearing from 3 recent people who've recently done a peace circle over the last couple of years, Alice and Janine and Saba. And they'll be telling you each some of what their peace circle has been for them and how it's informed and changed their lives.
Yes, look, it is a unique space for self-reflection and soul searching. You know, it brings out aspects of peace that we probably, you know, haven't considered before. And that's the special part about the peace circle. And to be able to sit with people, because we bring women of different ethnic and cultural groups that we would not otherwise have met. That's what I love. And yeah, so I'm pleased that you all enjoyed it. And now we have a very special segment, as Shoshana mentioned, and I have the greatest of pleasure to invite the 3 young ladies who have agreed to share, and they are Alice, Janine and Saba. And first up is Alice.
Thank you so much, Tanya. Yes, I would love to share my story or my journey with the Creators of Peace. Just a couple of words about me. Before I do that, my name is Alice, and I'm currently in the final stage of completing my studies in peace and conflict at the University of Sydney. And I am very passionate about peace building and community development, and have been involved in designing and delivering some peace building and community focused programs for women and young people. My journey with the Creators of Peace started in 2019 when I participated in my very first in-person peace circle that I had learned about in context of my studies at the University of Sydney. The peace circle really provided me with a delicate space for introspection, and that led to many aha moments in my heart. In context of a listening activity, I realized that most of the time I had been listening impatiently, waiting to respond, rather than truly understand what the person has to say, wanting to prove my point, especially in difficult conversations. After that listening activity and after those insights, I started to really consciously practice my listening skills. And I remember that I called a friend after a difficult episode in our friendship. And for the first time, I really listened to her without interrupting her. She was very surprised, so was I. It was the very first time that, with the openness that I had in me and the missing that the feeling of missing her, I started to listen to her and learn more about her. And I felt as if I got to know her for a first time, but even from her perspective. And it felt really warm and very, very liberating. And it changed our relationship since then. another key moment that contributed to that inner transformation that is ongoing was in context of an online peace circle that happened last year, when we adapted the peace circle to the lockdown context. It was an online peace circle. In the story sharing part of the peace circle, one particular story really deeply touched me when one of the participants shared their life challenges as a member of the LGBTQIA+ community. Up until that point, I had been, a passive supporter of LGBTQIA+ issues. I was there intellectually, and I embraced, understood what the issues and what the challenges of the community are about, but it was all in the headspace. And while listening to their story, in that very moment in time, my heart really expanded, because for the first time, I could connect to a human's unique experience. And I was deeply, deeply moved and honored that not only my heart was expanding, but I was also learning more in my heart space, translating the knowledge that I have been gaining in the process of my studies into a place within my heart. So both levels, head and heart, combined. And that was one of the big moments in my life where I understood the power of the peace circle, and that listening genuinely and opening yourself to the stories of others may change you and the storyteller. And that is what happened to me, and I'm deeply grateful for it. And each time when I'm honored to co-facilitate the peace circle, I am learning more about myself. I'm learning more about strangers who become familiar to you, who become part of a community in the process of being willing to be vulnerable and connect. So yes, that is my experience of the peace circle, and I just cannot wait to, continue the work also as a Creators of Peace facilitator, and to enhance women's capacity in peace building, and to create those nurturing place where change happens within, and with what at the same time creates ripple effects into our family, into our community, and eventually also in the world. Thank you so much for listening. Now I would like to pass on to lovely Janine.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much, Alice. And thank everyone here for being here and for learning and experiencing what a peace circle is all about. It's a real pleasure of mine to talk for a few minutes about my first experience with the peace circle. I attended my first peace circle as a participant 3 years ago, and have since decided to stay on as a facilitator, and have facilitated a few peace circles since then. I decided to stay on as a facilitator because of my experience as a participant in my very first peace circle. I think if I had to sum up the experience in one word, it's actually a word that Alice used as well. It's transformational. I think so many parts of the world that we live in the society that we live in, things are very transactional. There is always something kind of expected from us in exchange for something. And I think that my experience with the peace circle wowed me, because it truly was about transformation rather than a simple transaction. There are so many things that I could mention about how the peace circle changed me as an individual and made me want to continue on as a facilitator. Really, I think in my very first experience, it helped me shift my paradigm about what peace is and me as an individual and my role in contributing to peace. I think for a really long time, I thought about it purely in a kind of large scale theoretical sense, which is entirely valid and a very important area of examining peace in these very large ways outside of the self and about the world. But I think what kind of shifted for me in that paradigm was that I myself as an individual can contribute to peace and putting peace into practice. And I don't have to, I can work on that right now, and I can do it right now. That was both an inner transformation and acknowledging the lack of peace within the family unit and in my community. And so I'd like to share for a few minutes about kind of the ways in which the first Peace Circle inspired me to put peace into practice. I am Lebanese. My parents fled the civil war in Lebanon during the 80s and then came to Australia, and I was born here. As you, I'm sure, can imagine, the effects of war on a family unit are deep. And yet being born here never really had very much to do with it. It was something I examined within my own family, but obviously wasn't something that I experienced personally. Something that I identified a lot in my family unit was anger and resentment toward certain groups. Essentially groups that had inflicted pain upon my family during the war. And so there was certainly a harboring of just very, very poor feelings and a lot of racist sentiment as well. This was something I thought I could never really change and I could never really do anything about, and that I couldn't contribute to. And my experience in the Peace Circle really made me realize, actually, you can. You say that you love peace and that you want to contribute to peace, and in your own family unit, there is a way in which you can be doing that. How that came about was that I taught an English as a second language for a number of years, and I had a student that came from one of the groups that there was a lot of resentment and anger towards in my family. And I was inspired by my Peace Circle. I had the idea to introduce them both, introduce my student to my grandmother. This was absolutely mortifying, as I'm sure many can imagine. It was so anxiety inducing. But I think another wonderful thing about the Peace Circle is its sense of community and connectedness. And I was so wonderfully supported by the people in the circle, both facilitators and participants. And I think that's such a testament to what a wonderful space that a circle is, and the way in which we truly get to connect and know one another. And that meeting did happen. And my experience in the Peace Circle really helped influence how I viewed creating peace and the power of narrative and storytelling as a peace building tool. It's a huge part of the Peace Circle. And I found that in practice between my grandmother and my student, the power of narrative and of telling stories meant that my grandmother no longer saw this individual as her cultural group's history, but she saw her as an individual with her own history. And that was, again, a big shift for my grandmother. And for me, it was utterly transformational. And that's why I'm just so very happy to be able to talk about it, because I just truly believe that this is such a powerful tool that can be used in a variety of contexts. In our group, my group mentioned all the different contexts in which they work, and I think it can be so easily applicable to so many people. So thank you for listening, and I would love to pass it on to our third and final speaker, Saba.
Hi friends, thanks Janine and Alice, thank you for having me. I'd like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the Arakwal people who are the traditional owners of the land that I'm on today, which is Bundjalung country in Lismore. So my name is Saba, and I have 15 years of professional experience working in human rights, and mainly on the topics of race unity and gender equality. And I mainly entered those areas of work because I had experienced sexual violence and I had experienced racism. So having felt that, I could not bear anyone else to feel it. So that's how I got into that work. So I'm just going to briefly share with you what my experience was of my Peace Circle and also how I'm trying to put peace into practice. So for my whole life, I was focusing on external peace. And when I did the Peace Circle, it changed my life. It made me have to focus on my inner peace, which is not something that I had done. And a lot of the chronic pain, I developed chronic health issues and chronic pain. And I think this was because I had not healed myself and I wasn't working on my inner peace, and I was just doing this external peace work. So some changes or transformations that came about after the Peace Circle was I quit my job, which was a high government position. It was racist. I was being bullied. There was a lot of corruption. And as a woman of color who is really passionate about social justice, I unfortunately realized that not only would I not survive in that environment, I would not thrive. So while that was really sad and depressing for me, it was also freeing to realize that. I took a less, I guess, powerful or influential role. I went to 4 days a week. I gave up a lot of money and I decided to work on that inner peace. And a lot of it was healing. I had to let go of my ego. I had to let go of my professional aspirations and what I thought success looked like. Also, as a woman, I was a single woman who was not a mother. And I felt that as a woman, I didn't have credibility in society if I wasn't a mother and if I wasn't a wife. So I thought the only way to prove myself and my worth would be through my career. And then I realized through being surrounded by the most loving sisters that I have a lot of worth, and it was not about those external aspects. So at the moment, I've also moved to the country, just doing a lot of healing work. And my practical aspect of peace, or trying to put peace into practice, is I started a women's circle, and it's called the Heroine's Journey. And this women's circle is for all women in the community. I was running it in Sydney and now I'm running it in Lismore. And the purpose of it is to offer a safe space for women to come together and to explore ways to cultivate their nobility and their self-worth. Because in all my work around the world, I realized that the one common denominator of women that were sick or in abusive relationships was their self-worth. So it was really important for me to focus on supporting women to build their self-worth, but also nurturing my own self-worth. So these sessions are free. I do not take payment. They're facilitated by loving women. So I get other women as guest speakers to come to share their knowledge. So the sessions have a guided meditation at the beginning, and then they have an inspiring talk by one of these women, which has 3 takeaway skills for the women that are there. And then it also has just a sharing circle where the women can just share with each other. So I'm not only doing this for the women, but it's also a healing process for me. So yes, and also I'm also planning, once I have a bit more momentum with this group, to then offer the Peace Circle as a side group for the women as well. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. You know, it really is a unique opportunity to reflect on aspects of ourself that we wouldn't otherwise. It's not a counselling session. It is a supportive space to feel heard. And that's what builds the friendships. There was a question in the chat box. Things that said in the Peace Circle might make someone feel vulnerable. Will it remain in confidence? Well, at the beginning of a peace circle, all the participants look at and share and request guidelines. We make a list of guidelines of what's important, confidentiality, no judgment. I have forgotten the other aspects, but it's a whole list of guidelines that forms a safe space where we can share what's on our heart. And it opens up opportunities to be heard like we're never heard before. It's an enriching experience, and you can hear from the girls that it really is a powerful, positive experience. I'd just like to say at this point that you've all heard Shoshana. Shoshana, for the last 12 years, has been our facilitator trainer, offering us her skills as a professional facilitator herself. We are so fortunate to have Shoshana with us. She has facilitated all around, trained facilitators all around the world. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. All right, well, I think we've come to a Q&A. There are a number of questions in the chat box, Shoshana. I'm not sure if you've...
Yes, I'm up on it.
Yes, you're on to them all.
Yep, there's not too many, so if anybody's got any more, you're welcome to add them, or we can hear them in the room. I think we've got like 5 or 10 minutes. Is that correct, Tanya?
We've got 10 minutes. Yeah.
Okay. Somebody asked about the youngest age, and I don't really know the answer to that. But
the what?
The youngest
age.
Certainly had this young generation in the UK in the last week from around the world, and we do kind of check it out who's coming into the peace circle. So if we've got someone young, we might check out that they've got an understanding of what they're coming for, and if it feels appropriate. So I really want to address Beth's question about our advocacy program, the Advocates for a New Story, because I think that's very significant, and which I mentioned earlier, and I'll mention again. I mean, firstly, if you get onto the Creators of Peace International website, you will find that there is a handbook for this program, and you can actually download that handbook. So what the handbook is about is empowering people. If you want to run this program or get a group of people together, it's a 5-session program based on together having a look at what are the stories that you have already grown up with or are in your life. What's in your own personal story, and what's in your... Janine described it so beautifully about the narratives that she grew up with, and then being able to actually stop and question those narratives and look for a different way in that, to move from what we might call the separation that creates to the connection over those very common struggles that we have. So that particular program allows you to go on a journey with a group of people and think about those narratives. A really powerful way of questioning. I don't know what else I can say about that, except you could read the handbook and get a good sense of it. It's a very powerful program. Benzine, you asked about how ways men could engage in peace circles. We at the I don't necessarily have an answer to that, because it's not something that we are particularly focused on, although the question comes up a lot. And for instance, at Sydney University in the programs, because they're the program is designed particularly for students of peace and conflict studies, we decided to open the program there to whoever wanted to come, male or female. We weren't specifically. So just as a matter of interest, the number of the programs we did run, we had a number of guys. We never had too many, but we had a few, and it seemed to work very comfortably in that context. But there was agreement from all the participants that they were fine with it being like that. There may be other opportunities to do that. I know that Benzo, and I do know you are involved in a number of similar things, so I'm happy to have a further offline discussion with you about that at some point, very happily. And to see, you know, there's all sorts of possibilities that could come up. There have been places where it's happened in just as a matter of interest. In Sweden some years ago, they ran an all-male peace circle. It was run by 2 women, and the men in the peace circle who had requested it were all Somalian men who were community leaders now living in Sweden, and the program was facilitated by 2 women, one of whom was a local facilitator and the other was a Somali woman. Anyway, that was just an example. Did you want to add something there, Tanya?
Yeah, the telling a new story, we bring together men and women into our...
Yeah, that's not specifically a women's program. That's true. And nor is the engaging constructively in challenging conversation. So some of our programs involve people. There may be a way, it's a conversation that could be had. If you've got something in mind, it's something we could be talking about. I think that pretty well addresses it. Somebody asked if we have a counsellor, but I think that got answered in the chat room. And
the
our programs are healing, but they're not about counselling. If we feel that somebody needs counselling, we're very careful because our facilitators are not counsellors, and it's important not to engage in that kind of relationship with participants. But we do usually have on hand connections or people that we can suggest might be useful resources in that area, rather than, you know, we don't engage in counselling in a peace circle. Yet people do have quite a deep and healing experience, but it's not on the one-to-one counselling level. I'd be open to, if anybody immediately has a question right now, I'm open to that. Or you may have put one in the chat. So maybe I didn't see anybody. I've got my screen with all of you on it. I can't see any hands waving. Oh, I can. Sandra, you've got a question. I can see you've got a raised hand. Thanks.
Might like to share with people the fact that this is a volunteer-run program, and it has been, but there, and speak more about, just say a little bit about that.
Thank you.
People want to know, is it costly? How do you get a facilitator, et cetera, et cetera?
Do you want me to say more about that? Is that what you're asking?
No, I want, yes, I thought other people might be interested.
Yeah, thank you, that's an excellent, Sandra, thank you. It's an excellent question, and I'm not sure if it got mentioned earlier. It's hard to remember everything, but we are voluntary. You know, at this point in time, it is Creators of Peace has been a grassroots voluntary organisation or a network. We don't call ourselves an organisation, we call ourselves a network or a movement, because it just kind of evolves and things happen. And facilitators who are trained, as Tanya mentioned, we have a manual and a training program, and we do, to some degree, we're very careful about who we allow to be facilitators where we can. And at this stage, everything is voluntary. We ask, so facilitators give their time freely, because it's one, as Alice and Janine and Saba explained, it's an incredible experience that they come back and want to do. So there's a lot of personal gain. In the context of the new world we're moving into, we are changing some of those things. And we will be moving to different hybrid models. So some peace circles will remain free. Sometimes we ask for donations, and sometimes we will be asking for payment for those who can do that in the future. We will be looking in the future to start moving towards, sometimes in certain situations, reimbursing facilitators or paying them for their work. So it's sort of something we're moving towards like everything, we're growing, and there are costs, organisational costs involved in keeping a network like ours alive. So we'll be looking for it to be revenue raising to combat the costs. So that's where we're moving. Thanks for the question. Does that answer it? Was there anything more?
Oh, there was a question that I read, which was addressed, I think, but maybe it's important to be addressed publicly. And it was about the confidentiality of the stories that get shared within the circles. Shoshana?
Yeah, sure. As you know, I mean, confidentiality is one of the key pieces at the beginning of the Peace Circle, clearly. I mean, we try and work as much as possible to create as safe as possible a space. So, you know, people share things in their stories that they've never shared before. So sometimes, and that can be very healing. You know, we hold on to things that we feel shame about, and the sharing of that can be very healing. So we're very clear in the Peace Circle that people can go off and talk about their own personal experience, and as the Janine and Alice and Saba did, and what been for them. But we don't talk about other people. We might talk about what we learned from other people, but we don't share and talk about what other people have said. And it's a pretty basic and important requirement as part of the safety that we're aiming to set up for. In the beginning of every Peace Circle, I think it's already mentioned it, we do set up a number of guidelines about how to be with each other and what's important. Very important part of the Peace Circle.
Thank you.
There was one more question. When did you start? I think it was, I can't see it now, but when did we start doing online Peace Circles? Yeah, obviously during COVID. Yes.
Quick answer to that, which I'd love to answer. That was when COVID started. And a matter of fact, the Peace Circle that Saba was in and Janine and Alice were assisting on was scheduled. As a matter of fact, I was thinking to not do the Peace Circle. We had thought about it, but Saba and I went for a walk one day and Saba said, of course we'll do it online. We've got to go ahead. She was the person who encouraged me not to back off. So we kind of didn't know, we had no prior models and we worked it out as we went. We kind of just got on there and we worked it out and worked out ways. And that group bonded so deeply that they didn't want to stop. As a matter of fact, they went on to do the Advocates for a New Story program together, and then they went on to do the Engaging Constructively in Challenging Conversations program, and they kept saying, what more can we do together? And we did have the pleasure of meeting physically after the Peace Circle finished, you know, then we were able to meet, and we did meet one day, and you might enjoy the fact that we got together, and it was so funny. People were saying things like, oh my God, I had no idea you were so tall. Oh, I didn't know you were like, because we hadn't connected so deeply, but we'd never seen each other, you know, from here down. And we had a beautiful, beautiful lunch together. As you know, having lunch and shared meals is very much a part of what we usually would do. Now, what was the question about about going online? Sorry, I lost myself in the question there.
Yeah, just when did we start?
So I did want to thanks. So that one has started very soon in May last year. There was also one that started in Melbourne at that time. Now we are still running them. The most recent one we ran in Sydney was also online. The beauty of the online, there's a lot that's missing, as you can imagine, but there's also the beauty of being online is that we have people from different countries can be present. So our last Peace Circle here in Sydney based, had New Zealand, the Philippines, Indonesia, and so on. In the UK, they are now running them regularly. They've got it down and they're running several, and they're able to bring in people. When I say regularly, I'm talking about online, and bringing in people, you know, as the young group who produced the podcast the other day, you know, from all over the world, which is it's something else that we gain from that experience. So there's pros and cons. You know, in all countries, there've been a number of countries we've been doing online at the moment. It's worked surprisingly well. Alice and Janine and Saba could tell you they were the beginning of that experience, and the bonding was still very strong. I think we will move to the future where we will continue with both
yes,
models.
I think so. Kay, I think you had a question.
It's actually from Diane, but it came to me. How do you start a group in your local area, and how do you get a trained facilitator to participate in it?
There we go. I was just putting in the chat box to contact me at, and there's the email there, Creators of Peace New South Wales @ifc.org, or leave your name and email. And actually, Kay and myself will be running the next Peace Circle. At the end of October, we plan to do on Zoom. It will be on Zoom. So if you would like to, now, you know, even when Zoom, when we're out of lockdown and we can gather in homes, you can bring together someone in your own home and bring your friends, your neighbours, your aunts, your grandmothers, and we'll bring two co-facilitators to your home.
Yep, there are lots of options. We also are working on partnerships, you know, working with NGOs and different organisations to potentially run, a bit like we've done with Sydney Uni, and also to work with staff in different organisations about also coming together in a peace circle. So we're looking at a whole lot of different models. But if you're interested, you let Tanya know. That's the first step, as she said. And secondly, sometimes we have enough people and you can join a peace circle, or you may have people, as we said, that you might like to bring together. Yeah. It happens in all sorts of ways. It just evolves. It's a grassroots evolving process. Just like, if I've got a moment, I'd just like to say something. I can't help myself here. This is totally not on the agenda, but I've just noticed a very dear friend of mine pop up on the screen, so I'm going to out her. The name is Njeri.
And Njeri, yeah.
If I can just say that Njeri is very active in Creators of Peace and has been in Kenya over the years, part of the program that I mentioned earlier. Great personal friend of mine. One of the things that I love about Creators of Peace is the deep friendships that come out of it. And just want to mention a very new project that we're working on that I haven't even mentioned yet, that's on the ground, which Njeri has instigated, is that in her children's local public school, they have no toilets. This is real peace in practice. And we're about to run some fundraising, and which we've already done a bit of, and Njeri's got a toilet block with 10 toilets, compost toilets, about to be launched, which is a huge accomplishment, and it's only the beginning. I don't know if you want to say hello or a word there. You have a moment if you want to. It's totally not on our agenda, and I know we're going to finish in a minute. Couldn't help but mention it because it's an example of the sorts of things that just happen out of peace circles and the connections that we have as a result of those peace circles.
Thank you so much, Shoshana, and my very many friends from Creators of Peace that I can see around. My apologies, I've just joined because I was in another call that I couldn't miss. So I said I was gonna join Peace even if it was just for a few minutes. And yeah, Creators of Peace has really transformed my life, I think from 2007, if I am not wrong. And it turned my life around. I've become a peace practitioner, and that means in everything that I do in my life, I constantly ask myself, you know, am I building peace? Am I building peace, or am I destroying peace? And so it's really something that keeps me in check. And of course, realizing that You know, creating peace goes beyond where there is violence, and even in places where people have no food, you know, helping them have food on the table is a way of creating peace. And like Shoshana has mentioned, recently where we took our kids to a public school so that we can be part of the journey of making sure that it's not just what is good for our children, but what is good for every child, and that every child deserves good sanitation and hygiene. And so, yeah, we are trying to build some toilets. And I see that also as part of my journey as a peace creator, because where there is good hygiene, where there is good sanitation, means that there is peace of heart, and peace of heart is definitely absolutely important. Thank you so much, Shoshana, for giving me an opportunity to say hello to all these beautiful, amazing human beings over here. Nice meeting all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. That was totally spontaneous.
Thank you so much, Najiri.
One more, just want to say, if I can, Tanya, because as we round up, I really want to remind people that there is a Peace Circle coming up shortly in Sydney, which Tanya and Kay will be offering. So if you're wanting that experience, please contact Tanya. Please get back onto the websites and get the information. Please contact any of us if you want to hear more. Please check out the IFC website, for the Initiatives of Change website, because there's also many wonderful programs running there or ways to get involved.
Can I plug the What's On newsletter, the local newsletter?
Yeah, get on our mailing list, yep.
Get on the mailing list. It's a very informative newsletter reporting on all the activities that it would be coming up. Well,
thank you for
I think
your
we've
time,
come
everybody.
Perfect timing, isn't it? Well done, girls. Well, I do hope that you all enjoyed getting to know Creators of Peace. I'd like to just say it's a statement that I'd like to invite you to consider. Whether it's peace of mind or peace on earth that you're after. Peace is an ongoing journey, and we invite you to journey with us to find your place in creating peace. And we'll close now. Oh, before we go, I would like to say, if you would like to contribute a donation to the Raising Peace Festival Committee, so that, this has been a wonderful opportunity, this Raising Peace Festival, and for it to continue annually, they would appreciate a donation. So it's at the website, on the Raising Peace website. I've just sent it on the chat. And to close, let's all go off mute. Let's all open the mute and declare the words, peace starts with me.
Peace
starts with me.
Peace starts with me.
Peace starts with me. Peace starts with me.
Peace starts with me.
Peace starts with me.
Thank me.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. God bless. Enjoy.
Bye.